And I wanted to get into the conversation around the work, the recent work in the form of a book you have done. Give us the story behind why that book was relevant in today's world of practice leadership, or somewhat practice, or good practice, or ethical practice.
So I'm not quite sure what Alan's told you about the story of the book,
That's
but
fine.
I'll tell you my story. Alan approached us, and out of the blue, we didn't know him well, and he said, how about you write a book about practice, like quality and safeguarding? Mm-hmm. And from my point of view, quality and safeguarding is this sort of invention that's come along in the last sort of 10 or so years. Mm-hmm. We used to call it quality services. Mm-hmm. And there's this tension between quality services is what needs to be in place and what good outcomes are. And quality and safeguarding is about what shouldn't be there. Mm-hmm. So we don't want abuse. And you focus on stopping those things happening mm-hmm. rather than making good things happen. Mm-hmm. So I was but after a lot of conversation and reconceptualising things, we decided we would go ahead, because one of the issues is that we do a lot of research. We publish it in academic papers, and there's a particular way of writing for academic papers, very hard to understand. Mm-hmm. You often cut a big project up into 10 papers, mm-hmm. and very few papers mm-hmm. other than other academics mm-hmm. and students. Mm-hmm. So one of the ways of sharing our research has been through developing training materials, but most of those have been directed at frontline workers. And it's the people in the middle, the sort of managers and the senior leaders, who are increasingly coming from outside of the disability sector, who don't have actual basic knowledge about theories of disability, for example. And they've been coming into the sector. And so from my point of view, this book is about distilling a lot of knowledge about the theory of disability, about good practice, into something that's understandable to non-academics and which will be read and will contribute to trying to make change in disability services. Mm-hmm. And if the truth be known, I talked about this to one of the senior people at the university, and I said, what do you think, should I spend the next year or so working on this book? And their response was, why would you do that? You could write 10 papers in that period of time, mm-hmm. you'd get 20 brownie points and we'd all be much happier. Whereas from my point of view, writing the book will actually have an impact, hopefully, mm-hmm. much more impact on what actually happens. And I think that's really clear at the moment from the fact that it's had 14,000 downloads, when the standard academic paper maybe get 1,000 if you're very lucky. Mm-hmm. I think the readership is already much broader than the sort of collection of academic papers that might have been in its stead. That's my story of the book. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to make it around practice with people with intellectual disabilities, not just disability, mm-hmm. because we need to, I think, if we can get it right with people with intellectual disabilities who find it really hard to self-direct, who have real high communication problems, who don't have strong social networks, all of those things, we can get it right for that group, we can get it right for everybody else who mm-hmm. can advocate for themselves. Mm-hmm.